With the Ravens. I think I believe in Lamar Jackson more than any other offense out there. And I also think this defense, if they can get healthy in the secondary, they can go back to their form that they were at before and still be a problem defense. But if they don't get healthy in the secondary, then I think this team is in trouble. But I think I'm picking them more by default because the Browns, they ain't been to the playoffs since they've been back to Cleveland. And the Steelers are on a slide. And I don't even think the Steelers outplayed the Ravens when they beat them.
RC, it's a sort of a variant on the question I just asked you a moment ago. Which of the three teams do you think is the last one standing?
I mean, like, look at these teams. You know what's crazy? What's crazy, Greeny? I'm gonna tell you the question I can't answer, right? Because sometimes I can't answer them all because I don't have all those answers. I know the one that's gonna lose first. The Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh,
and that's and that's the thing I'm sure of. I don't know because Cleveland and the Ravens can play. I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't see the Pittsburgh Steelers winning a game in the playoffs the way that they're playing. I think it's an impossibility, and I know that's something you can't say in this league because the games have to be played, but they have no offense. The defense is banged up. I just don't see this team winning another football game in 2020 and the early 2021. So they'll be the first one home. Who wins out of the Baltimore Ravens and the Cleveland Browns? I don't know. Maybe they both get to the second round. Maybe neither. But I know the Pittsburgh Steelers don't.
I will accept that answer. I like it. Dan Graziano, who you got going the deepest?
I was thinking it's a good thing Dominique does answer the question and not RC, right? Because, it's terrible. You got to pick somebody. I'm going with Baltimore. I think it's possible that crazy victory over the Browns a couple Monday nights ago activated them. They look like their old terrifying selves this past weekend. And, yes, I know they're playing the Jaguars, but that's what they did last year, right? They bullied people. They won big when they could. And I think they're feeling it right now. To Dominique's point about the secondary, that gets healthy. They are a scary team. If I'm the Chiefs, I'm not scared of anybody. But I'm looking at Baltimore and I'm going, ooh, don't get too hot.
I agree. They're also the last AFC team to play Wild Card Weekend and make it to the Super Bowl. I just feel like in this incarnation of the Ravens, these last 15 or 20 years, this role suits them better. I will take Baltimore as well. I don't think that they're the team that is meant to come in 14-2 when everybody is scared of them. I think they're meant to be the team that has to sort of fight its way out of a corner and people don't see coming, and they wind up being the team that nobody wants any part of. Dominique, you're my former Raven. Agree or disagree with that? I think this role suits them.
I mean, I guess. I think that's a lot of fan mumbo jumbo, to be honest with you. I think that they'd rather get a bye in the first round and plow through teams. But sure, I'm with you, Dan. I mean, I'm with you, Mike. They like being underdogs and injured and not having any healthy players and coming in and coming in with no healthy DBs. That's the Baltimore way.
For the record. Don't ever look down on Mumbo Jumbo. I've made a 30-year career out of it. Foxworth, NFC wildcard, Arizona, Chicago. Who you got?
Yeah, I think you got to go with Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. They aren't a perfect team, but they're playing better. Kyler Murray seems to be healthy again, making a lot of plays. But I'm certainly not going to bet on the Bears in this situation, though Trubisky has come on a little bit. He hasn't been reliable by any stretch. So, yeah, I think you got to stick with the Cardinals in this situation.
Bears have a very winnable game this week with Jacksonville. Then we'll see. RC, next up, NFC West, Seahawks, Rams. Who you got?
I'm going to take the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks win the head-to-head matchup against the Rams. That'll be in Seattle. They've been playing better defensively. And you look at that second half of the Los Angeles Rams games, that was kind of when it started. And then the Seahawks finished with the San Francisco 49ers, whereas the Rams finished with the Arizona Cardinals. I just think they have a better schedule. I think right now they're playing a little better football, and Russell Wilson finds a way to get it done.
And the Rams just lost to the Jets. Meanwhile, Graziano, Washington or the Giants in the East? Who you got?
This is an ugly one, that's for sure. But I will take Washington. They have the tiebreaker edge on the Giants. I'm sorry, no, they don't have the tiebreaker. They have the tiebreaker edge on the Giants. No, they lost to 20.
The Giants have the tiebreaker.
I have no idea what I'm talking about. It's probably going to be the Giants now. Washington is my pick, but obviously I'm an idiot.
Washington will wind up winning that division, he says. Meanwhile, let's talk about a team that will not only likely win its division, but will have all kinds of expectations on it heading into the playoffs, and that is the New Orleans Saints, who get a lot of praise for their performance in a loss against the Chiefs on Sunday. But despite the good vibes, Sean Payton was asked yesterday why anyone should expect the Saints to go on a title run given the team's postseason struggles and heartbreak the last 3 years. Here's what he said.
I think there's a little laziness relative to research and saying, well, they get to the playoffs, they're one and done. Not really. Will it need to be the Super Bowl? Yeah, probably so. I mean, but you know what? That's a good measuring stick, and that gives you an indication of how organizationally the culture's changed.
So I thought that was a very interesting thing for him to say, Dominique Foxworth. As you heard it, what's your reaction?
You know where I stand on these sorts of things. Good coaches like Sean Payton recognize that they can use the media to their advantage. He is talking to his players. He's resetting their mind. He's finding something to point to, an enemy that they can all look at. Right now, he's just saying, like, no one thinks we can do it. He's doing the same thing that coaches do. He's a smart man. He's doing this right now. But I think that all the things he said also are very true. The culture in that organization must be incredible. To consider that they bounced back from the Minnesota Miracle and also that missed pass interference call to be able to still be competitive going forward, like stuff like that crushes teams. So I think he's right, and I think this team has not peaked too early. They'll be fine in the playoffs, and peaking too early has nothing to do with Drew Brees' arm strength, which I think is going to be the deciding factor on how far they go.
Well, listen, I have to say this, Dominique. I agreed with the first part of what you said, which is that I think Sean Payton is talking to his players through the media. I have to disagree with the second part. They have peaked too early the last few years. That may not be the reason they get knocked out. But Ryan Clark, it feels to me like 11 weeks into the season every single year, they look like the best team in the NFL. And by the time they get to the playoffs, they don't. I don't think that's an unfair way to characterize the way the last few years have gone in New Orleans. What do you think?
I mean, I think they've played extremely well during stretches of certain seasons, and they lost some games. I mean, you can't expect Stephon Diggs to catch a ball and Marcus Williams to run right by him. You can't expect an official to be looking at Roby Coleman, hit a guy before the play, hit him in his helmet, and not throw a flag. And so those aren't excuses. Those are things that just happen. And yes, you have to win the football game, but I don't see it this way. Listen, when Master P, when they dropped the True album, they thought that could have been their height. But later on, we got Make 'Em Say, right? We signed Mia X. We signed Mystical. And that's what the Saints have done. Every year they've come back and found ways to be competitive. It is about a culture. It is about a belief. And so when you look at this team going into the playoffs, playing great defense still, Drew Brees having to get back in the rhythm, and where they were against the Kansas City Chiefs in a game where Drew didn't play well early, this is one of the best teams in the NFC. And they have to get breaks. Things have to go right. But that's everybody. That's every season. And I think the Saints are right in the thick of the NFC hunt, just like the Packers, just like the Seahawks, just like the Buccaneers. This isn't a team you want to play or you can count out right now.
What's the look on your face, Nick?
Oh, no, I just was wondering. I wanted to ask Dan who he thought Emmanuel Sanders is. Is he Snoop Dogg, Mia X, Mystical? Who is he in this analogy? Who did they sign? Yeah, obviously, I'm giving you a chance to bounce back from your rough start earlier.
You're not putting me in the best position to succeed. I got to be honest.
That's exactly right. That's terrible coaching, Dominique. That's just awful coaching. You got to know your talent. Okay, that's like actually asking Mitch Trubisky to play the West Coast offense.
That's terrible coaching. I gave him multiple choice. That's an easy dump. Just say, I don't know, Mystical. And I would have said, way to go, taking over for the 9-9 in the 2000.
Hopefully when we do the show live, we'll get all this right.
If I could somehow circle this back to the place that I thought it began, it would be to say that part of it, look, I understand that game they lose to the Rams, it might be the worst call of all time, but the reality is they didn't play well that day. And they didn't play well in the playoff game last year against Minnesota when they lose at home. And they have looked, and part of it might be that Brees, we have said consistently.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Can I sit in your seat, Greeny? Can I sit in your seat?
Sure.
Every season, can you pick the winner of the Super Bowl by how they're playing in Week 11?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Right. So we can't now place this on the Saints and say that they underachieved in the playoffs. Getting to an AFC championship, even when you're the number one seed, is difficult. And losing that game happens from time to time. I don't necessarily know that it's about peaking during the middle of the season as it is executing in those moments. There's been some moments that they haven't executed, but that isn't to say that they peaked too early and weren't in the hunt late in the season.
Come on, Dan. You got something to say. Save yourself, Dan. Say something smart.
It's supposed to go to NBA. I was at those last two Saints playoff losses. They had the chance to win the game, even after the pass interference penalty. They played lousy against the Vikings last year. You can learn from those experiences and be a better January team, and that does not mean that you're